All right. Glad to see you all here. And I'm guessing others will join us once we get underway. This is a topic that I think since February I've been promising that we would look at, but things kept coming up. And so we had some other topics. But finally, we're here at Effective Peer Assessment and Feedback. And if you think back, to previous topics, we were looking at learner differences, and then we kind of were wrapping up learner differences, talking about effective group and pair work. And this is kind of attached to that, I think, a nice extension of that topic. So just a reminder. So today we will start out with a warm-up discussion, as we often do. And usually we start out with me kind of presenting some material and then we apply it in the activities, but we're going to do things a little backwards today. We're going to start out with 3 different activities. Then we are going to analyze them and then do some application after that. So just to make sure we're on the same page too about what peer assessment is, basically is when we have our students assess each other's work or their performance. So the process might be very formal or it might be informal. It could be as informal as turn to your partner and tell them something they did well, tell them something they need to work on, or it could be very formal using rubrics, worksheets, something of that nature. And similarly, the result may also be formal or informal. And here what I mean is that the results may result in a grade, basically. So you may be grading students on what kinds of feedback they give each other, or you may be using some of the peer feedback to be included in grades. That's something you wouldn't want to do right at the beginning when students are learning to peer assess each other. But students who are practiced at it might have some input into grading. For example, thinking about in my master's class, we had to give peer feedback to one another, and the combination of the peer feedback was half of that grade. So the teacher's grade mixed with the class's grade together to kind of balance things out. So I'm looking here for you to share your thoughts and ideas. Have you ever used or experienced peer assessment? So either as a teacher or as a student yourself? And if so, what did you think of it? Was it a positive experience? Did it fall flat? Something in the middle? And then also, while we're on this topic, what might be some benefits of having students assess and give feedback to each other? So here, as usual, you can answer in the chat, or you are free to raise your hands and tell us what you think with your words. So I am curious. I don't know how extensively peer feedback is used here in Kenya, in schools or universities or other situations. So I'm interested in knowing your experience. Go ahead, Nihad.
Thanks, Mina. But mine is from a different perspective. I'm not a teacher per se, but I'm a leader who handles customer agents. So I'm their manager. So in terms of reviewing the agents' responses to the customers, I normally use the peer-to-peer reviews in a way that we normally have. Sorry for the rain. There's a bit of noise on my end. It's raining.
Oh, it's quite all right.
So we normally have a meeting, a session once a week, where each agent goes through the other one's tickets. We discuss it, we analyze it, and then we give feedback. So basically, I take a back seat and let them do it themselves. So I just observe and then give my overall comments.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And why do you do it that way?
Sorry?
Why do you do it that way?
I feel it's better when they get feedback from their peers. It comes in more handy. They're able to relate to them better, and it also allows them to know that I'm not perfect. Neither is my colleague, because both of them get feedback, and it allows them also. It brings about also great teamwork in terms of them working together.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that, because I think that everything that you said in your context also applies to our teaching context. So I think that is very relevant and I think sums up a lot of what the purpose here is. Excellent, thank you. Anyone else with any thoughts related to peer assessment? Talking with teachers in the past, not necessarily here in Kenya, generally I find that teachers like the idea of it, but when carrying it out, it didn't go as expected, or they had some issues. Although I found others who found it very successful. And then others who like the idea, but could think of too many issues to actually try it. So you may fall into one of those categories. And if so, hopefully we can find some ways today to make you willing to give it a try, because I think there are a lot of benefits, particularly the ones that were just mentioned by Nihad. All right. I don't see anything in the comments, so I'm going to keep moving ahead, which makes me wonder if it's not something that's really done here. All right, so we're going to start out with activity 1, and activity 1 will be kind of a whole group activity. We'll do it in the chat. So I'm going to have you imagine that there was an assignment given to students, and their assignment was to make a poster. It didn't have to be an elaborate poster, even just on an A4 piece of paper. Let's imagine that they had to read The Great Gatsby, and they had to create some sort of poster that visually showed the relationships between the characters in The Great Gatsby. And we can imagine maybe this was in classwork or take home work, and they had to bring it in, and then students were going to give peer feedback to each other. So first I'll have you look at the poster here. This is the poster, let's imagine that one student made, and this was made by actual students, although they're university level students and not here in Kenya. They created this on Zoom, actually. And if you don't know The Great Gatsby, don't worry about that. I will tell you that everything is accurate on here. They did actually a very good job in terms of identifying the relationships between these people. So you might, whether you know the story or not, you might think of other aspects of it. While everything on here is correct, is there something they could have done better? Or is it very clear to you? And then this is the peer feedback here. So let's imagine I've put this up on the board as kind of a sentence stem, and students have to complete this sentence, and then they need to tell the person whose poster it is, or maybe I have them fill out this piece of paper. I liked your poster, especially, and they have to identify something specific that they liked about it, and then a suggestion to make it even better. What should they do? So I'm going to ask you to fill out this little slip in the chat. You can write the full sentence if you like, or you can just write what goes in the blanks. It's up to you. But let's imagine this is your classmate here. This is the poster your classmate made, and you're going to give your classmate some peer feedback using this model here. So completing these 2 sentences, I liked your poster especially, what? And to make it even better, a suggestion. Oh, no worries, Kasisha. We're just glad to have you here. Oh, and you were in Dar es Salaam. How exciting. So is there something that you can identify that you like about the poster? think there should be. And a suggestion to improve the poster. And if you don't want to type, you could also raise your hand and you can speak your feedback to this person. I don't see anything in the chat yet. It might be because it's taking you a bit to type it in. While I'm waiting, I will. Oh, go ahead.
We are beginning to type. I'm beginning to type. I've just got home. So let me type my answer.
Okay, no problem. Thanks, Patricia. I know it's a bit long to type as well. And I'll put something in the chat too. I like the simplicity there, Patricia. I like your poster, especially the use of arrows, right? Yeah, the arrows help us see the direction that this feeling is in. To make it even better, I suggest that you use bright colors to label the variables. I like that too. Yeah, because some of these might be a little bit hard to see, especially these lighter colors. Excellent. Thank you, Patricia. All right, I'm going to move on. Oh, actually, before I go any further, oh, and also there's another one. Antonine says, I like the poster, especially the use of verbs. Yes. Yeah, so maybe, well, I'll wait and see what your suggestion is, but that might be also another thing to have more consistency. So this is very basic level here of peer feedback. So I'd say this is very informal. I certainly wouldn't use this for grading. This is just to give some feedback. But I do want to point out a couple aspects of it. One, we have kind of sentence stems here. So this would be very helpful for students who didn't have a lot of experience with peer feedback, so that they would know if you just tell them, give each other feedback, they will say, I don't know what to say. But here, the goal is very simple. They just have to complete the sentence. We have another feedback here from Mohammed. I like it, especially the relationship shown to make it clear. Use black color to make it clear. So kind of, that's interesting, similar to what Patricia said, so that we can see it better. Good. Yeah, something about that visual aspect. Something else that we're modeling here is what you'll see is that we have something positive and also a suggestion. Everybody likes the positive affirmation that comes from peers, and that is a great feeling. But also, if we just get positive, then how do we improve? And so we also want to have room to kindly and gently make a suggestion for improvement. All right. Thank you, Antonina Mohammed, as well, for giving some feedback to your peer. All right, activity 2 is going to have you working a little harder, and also me too, because I have to keep track of the timing. So for this, we're going to be going into breakout rooms. And I think right now we have 7 or 8 of you. So maybe we'll do 2. Oh, now we have 9 of you. Probably do 3 breakout rooms then. So bear with me, this is a little complicated. So when you get into the breakout room, you will decide who will be the speaker. So make sure that the speaker is someone whose microphone is working and whose data is fine. Go ahead, Dell PC. I see you have your hand raised. You can unmute yourself if you have a question or something to add. Or perhaps you have just been clicking buttons and your hand went up, in which case, don't worry about it. So we're going to go in the breakout rooms, and the first thing you're going to do, go ahead, Del. I see your hand is up. But you are muted. Well, thank you very much. Yes, I think they presented the matter as well also. Thank you, TechnoSpark, for adding that. Okay, so in the breakout room, oh, we have another one. I can't unmute you, Del. Only you can unmute yourself. I don't have any control over that. Sorry. Do I? Actually, let me
Okay, I just
okay.
did.
Okay, great.
Okay, yeah, long time. It's been a while. My name is Odilia.
Oh, hi.
Yeah.
In Oman.
Yes, it's been a while. Today I said I must at least try. Yeah, so you're breaking out people into rooms. I said, don't leave me out.
Okay. I will not leave you out. And now you have full use of your microphone, so you'll definitely be able to join.
Yeah, how have you been, Mina?
Very good. I'm glad that you
Okay.
managed to catch back up with us.
Well, sometimes I check on topics. Yeah, because of the international programs, sometimes most of the things you do are really 844 systems. So when I see something that is general and cuts across professional relevance, then I join.
Excellent. I think that's
Yes.
a good way to make the most of your time.
Also, it's been busy. It's really busy here.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It's the talks help me a lot. Sometimes I just read, but some are really, really quite Kenyan type, but some are international in scope as well.
Excellent. Oh, good.
Yes. Yeah. So this peer feedback is important, really. So I said I must try.
Oh, great. I hope you get something useful today.
Wait, Austin is around?
No, actually,
Okay.
you have been gone a while. He was in the US. He
Okay.
was on a program and then he went to TESOL International. And
Okay.
actually, he's just begun his job with the embassy now. So he's still a
Okay.
member, but he's no longer our secretary. Rukia Mohammed is now our secretary.
Oh, okay, okay. Right.
Yes.
Great. Right, okay. Let us know of what's going on.
Will do.
Yeah, right.
All
So I
right.
should be joining a group?
Yeah. So let me finish explaining this and then we'll
Yeah.
get into the breakout rooms.
Okay.
Okay. So you're going to get into the breakout rooms. I believe there will be about 3 of you. If there's only 2 of you, don't worry about it. It's not a problem.
Okay.
So in the breakout rooms, you'll have 90 seconds to, I'm going to pose 2 questions. One question will be for the speaker and one question will be or some questions for the listeners. So
Yeah.
during that 90 seconds, you'll have a chance to look over the questions and make sure that you're ready. I'll also give you a little heads up in there, but the whole time you will be in the breakout room.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so then after the 90 during the 90 seconds, first you'll just decide who will be the speaker.
Second, slaggy.
Yes. Then after that, I will show the 2 questions. On the left-hand side of the screen will be, on the left-hand screen, actually will be the speaker's question. I get left and right always confused. You'll see it's clearly marked. There'll be the
Okay.
speaker's question and the listener's question. And everyone will have 1 minute to prepare. The speaker will be thinking about how to answer the question. The listeners will be reading the questions, making sure they know what to listen for. After the 1 minute is up, I'll let you all know.
Okay.
Then the speaker will speak for 2 minutes and the speaker should try to speak the whole time. And you'll know when to stop speaking because I will remove the image and you will no longer be able to see it. And then in the group, the listeners will have 3 minutes to give feedback. All right, is this clear? Are there any questions before we get into the room?
Okay.
Okay, Odelia
I'm good.
says she's got it. Anyone else? Okay.
Are there other people here?
Yes, there are.
We're how many? We're 9.
We are 9.
Okay.
Yep, we're 9.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So I'll just to reiterate. Oops, I just muted you. Sorry. We'll go in the breakout rooms. You have 90 seconds to decide who the speaker is. There's only going to be 1 speaker for this. After 90 seconds is up, you'll be able to see the 2 questions. The speaker will see the speaker's questions and the listeners will also be able to see their questions. You'll have 1 minute, speaker to think about how to answer, listeners to think about what to listen for. Then I will announce the time for speaking. You'll have 2 minutes. And then when the time is up, you'll see the image will go away and that means it's feedback time. And then I'll call everybody back. All right, so let me set up the breakout rooms. And I know some people, it takes you a little while to get into the breakout room, which is why I'm giving 90 seconds. It won't be exact. I'll be generous 90 seconds so that if it's taking you a little time to get into the room, you'll be able to manage it. Okay. It's 9 people, including me. Maybe let's just have 2 rooms then, just in case anybody is stuck and can't get into the room. Okay, I think that works out okay. All right, I know there's people with working microphones in each room. Okay, so I'm gonna go open the room and your first job is to decide who is the speaker. Okay, anyone who can still hear me means you have not joined the room. If you're having issues, let me know. I might be able to help you. I might not be able to. Okay, Adelia, I tried moving you. Hi, Keisha. I'm going to send you to a room and you're going to listen and they should be able to catch you up on what's going on. And Oven, I'll also send you in. Glad you're here, Oven. All right, I've got everybody coming back from the breakout rooms. And I think everybody is back. So I'm curious to know how it went in the breakout rooms. I'm curious to know if everything went smoothly, and also if anybody had any useful feedback or heard useful feedback in the breakout room. Were you able to answer these questions regarding the speaker? I wish that I could be in the breakout rooms, but if I do, then the screen goes away. So it is not possible to be in the breakout room and show the screens. Did anyone have a positive experience in the room? Hopefully no one had a negative experience, but if you did, please do let me know. Hi, Purity. I see you have joined us as well. And while everyone was in the breakout rooms, we did have some people join us as well. Owen is with us, but he is in transit. And I think Keisha was able to join a room as well. We did lose Odelia. Unfortunately, her network was too weak and kicked her out when she tried to join the breakout room. We'll see if she's able to join us. I'm also curious to know who the speakers were. Go ahead, Patricia.
Our speaker was Nihad, and one thing she dislikes was number one, she didn't cover the 2 minutes. She did her speech in 1 minute. We gave her that feedback. And something I enjoyed hearing was her experience in a boarding school. It was interesting what she went through, and that is what led her to her dislike for the activity she dislikes. It wasn't very clear why it is necessary for, why it is necessary for her to do that activity. It wasn't clear on my part. And I still had questions on whether she still is able to carry out that activity even at this time.
Oh, now I want to know, what is the activity?
She dislikes washing clothes.
I think everyone dislikes washing clothes.
But for her, from her boarding school experience, she washed clothes more than enough times.
Oh, enough for her whole life.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Excellent. So yes, it sounds like it's objective feedback, and it's interesting because it sounds like the what was unclear to you and what questions you have were related to the time. So perhaps if the time had been filled, it would have remedied that. Thank you.
That's true. Okay, thanks.
And Antonine, go ahead.
Yes, I was the speaker in my group 1.
Good.
So in group 1, the activity I dislike doing is washing plates.
Another washing activity.
I do not like washing plates, though it's necessary because immediately people feed. The kitchen needs to be cleaned up, cleared up, plates arranged, and everything is put back in order to leave space for complete work to prepare for another meal. I do not like washing plates because in our place, it is mandatory that it is done immediately after people have finished eating. At that time, I normally feel that immediately I finish eating, I want to take some time to relax before I undertake another activity. And that is what makes it very, very difficult for me, that immediately I finish, I wake up and I go and start cleaning once more. We were with Mohammed in the group. So Mohammed could give feedback on what happened. I believe he's hearing me.
I believe so too.
Okay, thank you, Anthony. Anthony spoke for the whole 2 minutes. What is something enjoy hearing? First, her voice. Secondly, I think there is something common with me because I dislike washing plates because sometimes there is something left in the plate, but I want to rest after having my meal. But once you finished your meal, you have to do something else, which I dislike to do something like that. When I was at boarding school, I used to take the plate instead of washing the plate after finishing the meal. And once something, I think all things are clear to me, and I have no question to ask her.
Very nice. Thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
nice feedback. And also, it's interesting. It seemed like you could personally connect. And actually, I feel like I
Okay.
can also, because I don't like washing dishes after I eat either. I also want to rest.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Excellent. Nice job. All right, so this was our peer-to-peer speaking feedback here. And I don't know if any of you noticed, but basically this question is an IELTS style question here. Just giving a little practice there. Oh, I forgot. I made this slide just for the questions, but you did that. Excellent. So now we're going to move on to our final activity with feedback, and then we'll go back and kind of analyze. So this is activity 3, and this will be some writing feedback. Again, this will be done in breakout rooms, and you'll be analyzing this paragraph. Don't worry, I know it's very small right now. I'm going to give you directions first, and then I'll move to the next slide where the paragraph will be much bigger. So you're going to imagine that this piece of writing is your partner's writing. And so you and your partner have exchanged writing. You will analyze the paragraph with the questions that I'm going to give. It's on the next slide. And then you'll use the answers to your question to give gentle yet productive feedback. So one way you could do this is you could just read the question and answer the question. A higher level, it would be to look at your answers to the questions and then use that to say, well, I see here that you did this and I like that. Maybe here you should have done that, something like this. Just a little advice, since we're not actually doing this, what I suggest you do in your groups, and you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but really this is meant to be pair work, but you're going to actually be doing this as group work. So I suggest that the first thing you do in your breakout rooms is analyze the paragraph together and look at the questions. And then I suggest that you take turns answering the questions verbally. So after you have all analyzed the paragraph together, maybe one person answers number 1, the other person answers number 2, as if they were giving feedback to their peer. So I'll advance to the next slide, and you can see here is the paragraph, big enough hopefully for you to see it. And then you'll see that there are 5 questions to answer. It says circle the signal words. If you're able to use the annotation tool, you can do that, or you can just identify verbally the signal words. So I'm going to open up the breakout rooms again, and I'm going to give about 6 minutes in the breakout rooms, and I'm going to mix up these rooms a little bit. And we might be able to have one more room too. Okay, let's see here. Yes, I think this will work. Will this work? Actually, sorry, I'm going to recreate it one more because I'm afraid that not everybody has a working mic. Okay, I think I have mixed them up appropriately. All right, I'm going to open the rooms and see you soon. All right, let's see here. I think almost everyone is back. And so I don't think that we need to go through all the answers here. But if someone wants to comment on the process of feedback, was it easy or difficult to give feedback? Was it hard to analyze? I'm interested in that, but since we are not doing a writing class, I don't think we need to actually go over the answers to 1 through 5. But I am curious to know if also this isn't a real situation. You don't have a peer here to give feedback to, so it's probably easier to be critical than if your actual peer was there. So bearing that in mind. Oh. Oh, okay. There was money in my laundry. So yes, I'm curious to know how the process went of analyzing together as a group. And do you think it would be different if you were talking to the person who actually wrote this? Or do you think that you could use these questions to give honest feedback to your peer? You can think about that. And we'll move on to kind of the analysis of this, and that might shed some light on your answer there. So we're going to look at the benefits of peer feedback and peer assessment. We'll look a little bit at the structure, and of course, we'll address the challenges as well. So in the beginning, Nihad gave us some great benefits for peer assessment and feedback in the workplace. And some of you might have thought, yeah, that makes sense for the workplace, but maybe not for the classroom. But I did think that all of that applied. For one thing, we have active learning. If we have something where someone has to speak and the rest of the class has to listen, or even just partners where one person speaks and the other has to listen, by making sure that there's an element of giving feedback, we've given a job to the listeners. So they cannot sit there passively because they actually have a job to do. And then this is also true in other things as well. If we have posters in the room and I say, go ahead and look at your classmates' posters, they might just look and say, but no, they need to actually be doing something mental. And then also we'll see with the writing, this also supports active learning and kind of prevents this passiveness that can happen in classes. One of the kind of, if we look at what Noonan says about a communicative classroom, one of the hallmarks of a communicative classroom is there needs to be some motivation for students to communicate. And by having peer assessment and feedback, we have set up a situation where students need to communicate with each other, either through writing or through speaking. They need to give this feedback to one another. So in that way, it serves the purpose, one of the requirements of a communicative classroom. In doing this, we've set up an exercise where students get to practice their skills of analysis. And in doing so, they improve their ability to self-analyze. The analytical skills are seen as some of the kind of higher tier critical thinking skills. And so we're teaching them and scaffolding them to do analysis by setting up these assignments. And by being able to practice it on one another, they can then be able to practice on themselves, which is ultimately what we all need to do. It's nice when we can get a colleague, coworker, or peer to give us feedback, but oftentimes we are our biggest source of feedback. And so these are relevant skills to us, not just in the classroom, but in the workplace as well. This is also an additional opportunity to practice, especially I feel like in peer assessing writing. The kinds of things that you saw an example of there is often what I have worksheets for students to do, whatever type of writing we're doing. They have a model of it and they have to find the features of the type of writing, thesis statements, things like this. And this is one more opportunity for them to practice. And then it's on something that is authentic. That's something I didn't mention here, but when students are giving peer feedback, they're working with authentic material. When a peer speaks, when a peer writes, when a peer produces something, they're doing it within the classroom, but they are truly trying to give their thoughts and ideas. And so in this way, we have student-generated authentic material for our students to practice with. A big part of this is it maximizes feedback. As a teacher, you are one person. It is very hard to give sufficient feedback to every student in your classroom. Currently, I'm teaching a writing class at the university. I have over 200 students. They never all come, but there's usually on any given day at least 100 students. And I can't give feedback to all of them. I try to get them to write something every single class. I absolutely cannot read all of their work every single class, or even maybe any class. But by making sure that they pair up, then they are getting some sort of feedback. And if we have students working in a group where 4 students are giving feedback to 1 student, then we're really multiplying that feedback. Also, we're providing an audience. It's frustrating when a student creates something, either written or spoken, and they put their work into it and there's no one to hear it, no one to see it. So we've made sure that there's an audience. We're also giving alternative feedback. The teacher might feel one way, but students feel another way. And so is one more legitimate than the other? It depends, but it certainly is nice to have another voice, another opinion and another viewpoint. And students can, hi Davies, students can definitely point out things, I think sometimes that are very valid that teachers don't see. I think that's really important. And finally, when we're working with peer assessment and feedback, we are supporting social emotional learning. This is a cooperative project. It's learning how to negotiate. It's learning how to ask for feedback. It's learning how to tell someone something negative, but in a polite and nice way. And so it's fostering a lot of those soft skills as well. So I think there are a lot of benefits to peer assessment and feedback. Are there any others that I didn't mention that you can think of? Any additional benefits for peer assessment and feedback? We will be looking at challenges as well. I'm sure we have a lot of thoughts on that. But if you have any other ideas of how this can benefit either the teacher or the student, please feel free to share your ideas, either in the chat or raise your hand to speak. I always like hearing your ideas and your perspectives. Go ahead, Patricia.
Hi, Mina.
Hi.
And everyone else. I think I like what you're saying about feedback. I teach a course in English called English for Academic Purposes for Proficient Users. And they do a lot of essay writing, academic writing, and some students struggle a lot. But of late, after these trainings, I have just come up with a method where I pair up the students, as you're saying, like a student who needs help. I pair them up with a really good one, and I realize, and I tell them before the essay comes to me, the other students should go through it and correct it and give me the final product. And their coursework was just profound. They produced very good work. And they even told me in class that that was the best method they have ever seen. And they're writing very good essays after that. So I think the peer feedback really works.
That's awesome. That's a resounding support for peer feedback. And you know, when you said that, it reminded me of another benefit. It can make the class more interesting, right? It's a chance for students to get to talk to each other. Excellent.
That's true. Some parents even give me feedback that the students are feeling very positive about the course, especially those who have been struggling to write their coursework, which requires them to write a 2,000-word essay. But they produce very good essays after that. It was just amazing.
Oh, that's so great to hear. Thank you for sharing that, Patricia. In
Thank
the
you.
chat, oh, you're welcome. In the chat, Anthony made an excellent point. The feedback is immediate, right? The teacher cannot give immediate feedback to everyone, but peers can. That is an excellent point. And Evan says, helps to identify the areas of weaknesses and strengths. Absolutely, right? And hearing that from a peer, sometimes it can be better than hearing it from a teacher. Excellent. Go ahead, Mohammed.
I think another benefit for peer assessment is the teacher is going to use less time for the feedback because they are going to assess themselves. So they are going to take a little time to assess or to get feedback.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, this is a time saver for teachers too, right? I think that reminds me too, something that Patricia said that made me think of something else is having the students first correct each other's mistakes. I had not as big a group as I have now, but I had, there were small classes, only 20, but I had 10 of them. So again, that's 200. And they had to write essays. They had to be turned in and put on file. So I absolutely had to correct everyone's essays. But I knew if I just had them write the essays, it would be torture. So the first drafts, they peer assessed each other. And so for the most part, they were able to catch the biggest problems. And so when they rewrote based on their peer feedback, I got much better work than I would have, which saved me time and also was less horrible than having to read some really terrible essays. In the chat, Nihad says, I recently did an open course on integrating critical thinking, and I agree the feedback received from my colleagues and the instructor confirmed that the feedback helped improve my writing. Excellent. That's a great example too, right? That mix of feedback and the maximize instead of just the teacher or the instructor getting all this different feedback. Excellent. Thank you all. So great points. So I think for this to be successful, structure is a huge part of it. I know from experience, and maybe you have too, if you just tell your students, okay, read each other's papers and find the mistakes, or turn to your partner and tell them something they did good, or tell them what they have to work on. Not a lot of success. We need some structure. It is the key, especially for students who don't have experience with peer assessment and feedback. They don't know what to do. And so basically what we're doing here is we are training them to be peer assessors. So the first step is to be specific about what we want students to assess and how we want them to do it. I found that in writing, I love to do peer assessment in writing because it gives them something to analyze and also helps them find each other's weaknesses. If I didn't instruct them, the first thing they did is they looked for spelling mistakes, grammar mistakes, and they criticized each other's handwriting. And those were not at all the things that I was interested in. Spelling mistakes can easily be fixed through a computer program. Most grammar mistakes can be caught that way as well. And really what I was interested in was their organization and their ideas. It was something they were really struggling with. And so even when I just said, okay, please focus, don't focus on spelling and grammar, please focus on organization and ideas, it was still a disaster because they didn't know what to do. And so I had to give them specific questions. Does the paragraph have a main idea? What does the writer include to support the main idea? And so it gave them the questions they needed to truly analyze the structure. Without that, it was kind of a disaster, and they were looking at things that really weren't that important overall. And then how do you want them to do it? Do you want them to do it in writing? Do you want them to be underlining? Do you want them to say certain things? And so again, you might look at sentence stems to help them produce the feedback the way you want them to. Also making sure in the structure, we want them to look for the types of things that should be in their own. Again, I think we can clearly highlight that in writing. If I have them looking for a thesis statement or a main idea in someone else's writing, it's because I want them to also make sure they have those things in their own writing. So they're getting this reinforcement. We want to make sure also that students are identifying both strengths and weaknesses. And so we need to structure that, make sure that they're looking for the strengths and identifying them, but also looking for the weaknesses. I've noticed that without ensuring this, I either get everyone only saying good things. Oh, no, it was perfect. Oh, it was amazing. Oh, I loved it. Okay, but what could be better? Oh, no, it was great. So you have to help them by asking specific questions to help them find those weaknesses, especially in the beginning. Something that can also happen, I haven't had this happen much though, is students can be really mean and just find all the faults with someone else's work. Luckily, that just doesn't happen very much, but by structuring, we can make sure we have a balance. I also like to include objective questions. For example, in the speaking, the first question was, did the speaker speak for 2 minutes? So that way you can clearly answer this without judging someone. Did they do it or not? Is there a thesis statement or not? So some of those objective questions can help the students kind of get into the mindset of analyzing without first having to say, oh, I don't want to hurt this person's feelings. Oh, no, it's either there or it's not there. It either is or isn't. So having some of those objective questions to help get them into it. And then most importantly, to do this effectively, students have to be trained, and the organization and structure of it is how we train them. If students are properly trained, then we will avoid some of the challenges that we'll be looking at in a moment. Nihad says that students should also be empowered to give their peers constructive feedback. Absolutely, right? That's part of it. That if we're doing this in the right way, this feedback is constructive, and everyone keeping in mind that constructive feedback is what improves us. Somebody saying, oh, it's wonderful. Oh, this is so good. It's very nice. It feels really good, but that's not what improves us, right? And so, yeah, being empowered. And so the structure, I think, is what helps with this empowerment too. If we structure it right, the student can identify, okay, there's something wrong with this essay. What is it? Oh, it's confusing. Okay, well, what's confusing? Oh, there's no topic sentence. Ah, okay, there's no topic sentence. Now we have legitimate proof for our constructive feedback. And so by structuring it, especially in the beginning, we can help ensure that. Okay, there definitely are challenges and issues. If this is a small one, if you have an uneven number of students, you just make one into a group of 3. It's not a problem, but sometimes students panic. This is a situation, you have a bad partner. The partner won't do it. The partner doesn't speak. And so that is something that can be an issue. This is something that I have experienced. Students only give positive feedback. They're too shy to say what the problem is, or they don't know enough to identify, which is where I think structure is important and goes back to what Nihad was saying. Being able to give constructive feedback is connected to empowerment. This luckily doesn't happen that often, but it is something that can happen, is hurt feelings, which is why we really need to make sure that the feedback is constructive, that it's supportive, and that it's balanced by positive feedback. It takes time to do, right? This is not, there is some time-saving element of peer feedback, but especially in the beginning and setting it up and maybe doing it for something that's not necessary takes time. But I think the training helps. Are there other challenges and issues that maybe I didn't mention that you can think of? If so, please feel free to share. And then also, given these issues and challenges, are there any solutions that haven't been mentioned that you can think of? So I'm interested in these 2 things. Any other challenges or issues, and also solutions. So keeping it positive as well with solutions. And as usual, you can use the chat or feel free to raise your hand and share. Go ahead, Nihad.
I have a question, rather a clarification.
Yes.
So basically what we're taught as managers now, this is from a different context as work, whereby we don't mix praise and criticism, or rather constructive feedback. So now in this case, in a class setup, do you mix the feedback so that because I believe mixing the feedback waters down the feedback that is being shared. So are you giving positive feedback by itself and then constructive feedback by itself, or do you mix in a class setup?
I think it's up to the teacher. I'm curious, the rationale, when you do it, you don't mix it. And is there a reason for not mixing it?
Yeah, so the reason why we don't actually mix is so that the praise doesn't water down the criticism, because the criticism or the constructive feedback is meant for this person to be a better person, right? So if you mix these two, chances of the praise overlapping the constructive criticism is very high. Yeah, so that's the
That
rationale
makes
behind
sense.
it.
That's a good rationale. You know, that isn't, I haven't thought about that. Something I was taught in grad school, and I don't always have my students do this, but when I give feedback, I usually do is called the sandwich: positive, negative, positive. And actually, I have to say the rationale behind that is kind of to water down the negative feedback, because coming from a teacher to a student, but it could be different student to student. I would like to think about that. I think it depends on the situation, and the class, the age, something like that, as opposed to a professional setting. But that is a really interesting question. And go ahead, Nihat. I don't know if your hand is still up, but if you were responding to that, go ahead. Or perhaps it was your hand still up. But yeah, I encourage everyone to think about that question. I think if you have very young learners or very students who are really lacking confidence, you would want to have a mix it up, and you would want to water down the criticism. But if you have higher stakes learning, I'm thinking maybe even Patricia with her kind of this higher level class, then you might perhaps separate it. I do like to always end with something positive though, so that might be mixing it up a little bit. In the chat, I think these are some other challenges. Students not knowing well how to express their thoughts. Absolutely, Anthony. And I think sometimes the students know there's something wrong, but they don't know quite how to phrase it, which I think is part of the training, making sure that we scaffold them to do that. Absolutely. This is a thing too. Patricia says some students, especially teenagers, fear getting feedback from their students. They say that they fear the thought that they don't know, right? So they, especially teenagers, I think this is a nice example too of learner differences related to age. Teenagers are very sensitive. Their egos are very sensitive. So with this, you might have them work with their friends. You might also consider doing anonymous feedback. I will say, if you do anonymous feedback, make sure students know that you are going to read the feedback. Anonymous feedback keeps students from knowing who said what, so they can't be mad at anyone. It also makes them feel a little freer, to be honest, but you need to make sure they know that you're going to read the feedback, because you don't want them being inappropriate or cruel to each other. So you might collect that feedback first, go through it, make sure everything is appropriate before giving it back out. But yeah, it can be scary. That's true, Evans. It can't be immediate, especially in speaking, but especially with writing, yes, the feedback might be delayed, because sometimes they are They are slow to work. I have experienced that myself. Oh, my PowerPoint's just doing whatever it wants. Davey says, I think shyness is the major issue here. The lack of confidence in themselves make them not want to express themselves well. Maybe reassuring them so that you get both positive and negative feedback. Excellent. I think that speaks well to what Nihad was saying, right? We need to look at the class there. Are they a bunch of shy students who are really afraid to make mistakes? In which case we want to water down the constructive criticism and focus on the positive. Or do we have a bunch of arrogant students who think they're amazing? That would be different. Good point, Mohammed, right? They might even second guess themselves. They might think, oh, this student is so smart. There's no way that I can be right. That can be an issue as well. Absolutely. Oh, good points, everyone. All right, I'm looking at the time. I had one final breakout room, but I think we're not going to go into it. I'll show it to you and you can think about it on your own time. So this is basically applying this to your own situations. Good point as well, Davies. So in this case, you might be very careful about how you set up partners, right? Having girls work with girls, boys work with boys, something like that. This might be a situation where students choose their own partners because they'll tend to choose someone that they're comfortable working with. This also might be a situation where the teacher chooses beforehand and thinks carefully about who's working with them. So applying this to your own situations, you're going to think of an exercise, activity, or project that you regularly do in your classrooms. Maybe you do it all the time or yearly, or something you plan on doing. And you're going to design a way to incorporate peer assessment and feedback into this, something that doesn't already have it. So you'll think about what you'll have the students work on. Do you want them to be assessing their grammar, a specific grammar point? Maybe you're working on present perfect, so you want them to be looking at that. Maybe specific something in writing, maybe something pronunciation related in speaking. So think about what specific points you want them to assess. How will you set up this so that they have both strengths and weaknesses being addressed? Think about the challenges for this specific activity as well. And then with the feedback, what will you do? Will you give it to the students? Will you use it for a grade? Enjoy, Mohammed. What will you do? Will you use this feedback to further train them on feedback? Will you have them do rewrites based on it? So this is something that you can do on your own and use this in a realistic way. So how can you apply what we've done today to something that you really do in the classroom or at work? Although it sounds like Nihad's got the peer assessment thing down. If you're interested in more information about peer assessment, this is a nice website that has a nice overview, but then it also has links to more specific things. I think there was something specifically about training students to assess each other and a couple other specific links. So there is a website here that you can follow, and there's also a QR code. If you're on a laptop, you can use your phone to open it. And then I will see you again in 2 weeks. This will be April 25th. And for the next session, some of you were able to participate in the virtual TESOL and some of you were not. So I'm going to be sending out a Google form with topics from the sessions, and you guys are going to vote on 1 or 2 depending on how long they are. And I will stream those sessions in our next session, and we'll also take some time to discuss them as well. So it will be something from the TESOL virtual sessions, but it will be a little bit more interactive because we'll have a chance to discuss it as well. So I plan on working that, start working on that tomorrow, and I hope on Friday to send a Google form out to the group for you to vote on topics that you are interested in. I know some of you have been able to access them yourselves as members of TESOL, but certainly the majority of the group has not been able to do that. And it's whether you have watched them or not, it's nice to be able to discuss them. Thank you for being here. It's always nice to see you all. We had a small group tonight, but I think it was very productive. I enjoyed hearing your ideas and sharing your perspective.